And what I'm going to tell you is a true story. And I don't really know how to tell it, but I'm just going to tell the parts that I know how to explain. Back in the early 2000s, I got acquainted with some people over in Virginia. Their last name was Rowlett or Roulette. They said Rowlett, so that's what I called them. And she was probably one of the most pleasant people. She was quiet and just soft spoken and just a good hearted person. He, on the other hand, was hell on wheels. He cussed, he ranted, he raved, he had nothing nice to say to her or anybody else. He was a mean, mean man, just mean. And she said that he'd been that way all of his life, and they were up in their mid to later 70s. It made me wonder why she would ever marry him, but she did. And I tried to talk to him on different occasions about coming to church. He'd cuss me and tell me he didn't want no part of it. But we got to be friends over the years, and he was a hard pill to swallow, but I guess I was tolerant. I don't know if it's where I was in the military for so long, it just didn't bother me or what. But he kind of warmed up to me. He didn't want my religion. He didn't want to hear nothing about the Lord, but he considered me his friend. And if he needed something, he would call me. If he was picking beans in the garden, he'd call me and ask me if I needed beans or whatever it was, corn, if he was picking corn, tomatoes, just whatever it was. He was my friend. And I guess I was his friend. But anyway, around 2013, 2014, something like that, he took sick. And I think he was 82 when he passed away. And I would go down, they put him in a nursing home for a while because he had a stroke. And they give him physical therapy and stuff. And they sent him home. And she put a hospital bed in the living room. And there was a big plate glass window there. It was about 5 feet by 6 or 7 feet, you know. And he would lay in that hospital bed because he couldn't get around good, and he'd look out the window. And a lot of times I'd go by and he'd see my truck and he'd throw his hand up, and I thought he was doing better. Well, called me one night and she said, "Dave, you need to come down here now." So I just got up, put my breeches on, my shirt, and told my wife, I said, "I'm gonna go down. Gonna go down. Miss Rowlett says I need to come down now." She said, "Okay, do you want me to go with you?" And I said, "No, I don't think that's okay. You've got to work tomorrow. Just you go on to sleep, and I'll be home when I get back." And she was acquainted with him, so she knew where I was going. And when I got there, he had already passed. Took him about an hour to pass away. She thought he had more time. And I walked in, and the ambulance service hadn't even got there yet to take him to not the ambulance service, the hearse. The funeral home hadn't got there to get him yet. The sheriff had been there and the coroner and pronounced him, and they had just left, but the hearse hadn't got there yet. And they had a big rock fireplace in their living room, and it worked. I mean, it was beautiful, just beautiful masonry work. And she said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "Do you know how to lay rock?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I want my fireplace rocked up. I want it closed up." And I said, "Well, Miss Rowlett," I said, "what if you need it, honey?" And she said, I'll never use it again. And she said, I want it rocked up as soon as I can get it done. And it made me curious because I didn't understand why she would want to do that. So I asked her, I said, why in the world would you want to do that? I said, that thing's beautiful. You may need that. Nope, going to rock it up. And I said, well, why? And she said, have you ever seen a reprobate die? And I said, no, not that I know of. Not if they, I mean, I've seen people get killed that were pretty bad. I said, but it was almost instantaneous. And I said, so no, I don't guess I really have. And and she said, you never want to see it. She said, he started feeling bad and told me, she said, I was sitting on the couch watching television with him. And he told me to get those people out of there, that he didn't like them. And she said, at first I thought he was hallucinating or something, watching them people on TV. And she said, I told him, said, there ain't nobody in here. That's TV. And he said, no, it's not. He said, I see them. They're people, and said they're dark. He had a name for them. They're dark people, and said they keep going in the kitchen. And he said they come around the bed, and he said they come over here and look at me, and then they're leaving. And he said, get them out of here. And she said, after a minute, she figured out what was going on because he started having trouble breathing. And she said, I just got down beside his bed and started praying. And she said, the more I prayed, the more he screamed and the more he yelled. And she said, I reached up to get a hold of his hand and he slapped it away and said, don't touch me. I'm burning up. And said he sat up in his bed and he said, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord. And said he pointed at that fireplace and said, here they come. They're going to drag me in that fire. Oh God. And she said his mouth flew open and his eyes got big. And she said he fell back on the bed and breathed his last breath. That terrifies me even today. And that's been over 10 years ago. That terrifies me. It happened just like I'm telling you. There's my story for the day. God bless you. Love one another. I'll talk to you later.